Welcome to the Healthy Investor Podcast with Bob Mastroianni, where you and I will learn from successful real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and other highly driven individuals about their journey and the healthy habits and routines that play an integral part of their growth. All right, welcome back to the Healthy Investor Podcast. Today I have with me Wyatt Simon. Wyatt is a Colorado native and washed-up basketball player turned investor. He's been in real estate for 6 years. He is a full-time investor with a current portfolio of 110 units, of which he owns 50%. He intends to have over 170 units by the end of the year. Wyatt is the owner of Full Circle Property Management, which is his in-house management of his current portfolio. He's also the co-owner of Full Circle Real Estate, which is an off-market deal finding company, which purchased 26 deals off-market last year and already have closed on 18 this year. Wyatt also attends City Light Church and believes in bettering our community one property at a time. My friend Wyatt, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. When you and I last spoke, I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to tell your story because I really think it's a great one. So let's start sort of from the beginning. What brought you into real estate? And then I guess I think it's really exciting and very interesting, the steps that your real estate journey has taken and how that's moved so far for you.
Yeah, well, when I didn't make it to the NBA, my collegiate basketball career was cut short. And so when I graduated college, I moved back to Colorado, where I was from, took a position for a home buying company in Colorado. And that's what opened my eyes to real estate. I worked for investors. They taught me how to buy houses. And from there, I said, I kind of want to do this, but I can't really afford to buy anything in Colorado. So I ended up moving to Nebraska, where my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was from, and started buying real estate in Nebraska. So that's just kind of how it started. Eventually figured out that buying single families it was just going to be a long grind to get to where I wanted to go. So eventually it was figured out multifamily was going to get me there faster, and transitioned into multifamily in 2001. And then we met through Jake and Gino, and that was huge for, education and network and everything else that it brought. And since then, it's just been setting up a property management company and finding more deals. So
well, interesting. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you before, but this is something that we do have in common. So I started my real estate journey, I guess, in 2008. Did a little bit of part-time, bought a couple small properties, fix and flip. But in 2016, I actually took on a position very similar with a real estate investment company. I acted as an acquisitions manager for about 3 years, helping wholesalers and fix and flip investors buy properties. And the lessons that you learn, it's very interesting when you really are face-to-face with people, making offers on properties. And there's so much that you can learn just from that experience. And I guess that probably helped to give you your bug, huh?
Yeah. I mean, without that, I just knew I wanted to do sales. And then I read the little book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, okay, let's start making assets work for me. That sounds good.
And it's so funny, the more people I talk to, and, I actually recorded another podcast just 2 days ago, and Rich Dad Poor Dad comes up every time. It really is like the first, it's real estate 101. It's, most investors find that book and then find that it's the right one to put them on track.
Yeah. It's the playbook.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So on your journey, when you decided you moved to Nebraska, you decided to start the business on your own. You were in residential at that point?
Yeah. And I was working a full-time job as well. So I was, in sales for a foundation company. And then I was just buying houses on the side, and it wasn't easy. It took me 4 months to finally find our first deal. And even then, it took me 6 months to rehab it after work, doing everything on my own. Okay. I was very inexperienced. I was so green, but I was just listening to Bigger Pockets and doing what I could. And then after 6 months, we finally renovated it and refinanced it and used the BRRRR strategy, and we're able to pull all of our capital out. And I was like, okay, well, this works. Let's just do it again.
Yeah.
And then from there on, I figured I'll just do it again. It's going to repeat. It's going to be awesome. Well, it took me the next 15 months to do 2 more because I ended up getting red tagged by the city. I didn't know what permits were. And, it was just like the biggest, like stupid 20-year-old trying to do stuff. I had no idea, but just putting my head down and saying, I'm going to do it. So, ended up having an 11-month rehab on one house, going $40,000 over budget. And, it all ended up working out. I bought it right, so it's still BRRRR'd out, but it wasn't quite the home run I thought it was going to be.
So how many times were you able to, and just for those listening, if you can give just a quick explanation of what it is when we talk about BRRRR.
Yeah. So BRRRR stands for buy, renovate, rehab, refinance, repeat. So BRRRR.
Great.
And, the reason to use that strategy was because if you don't have very much capital, it's a way you can increase the value of a property and then refinance all of the capital out and then do it again and again and again. So you can use a very little bit of capital to purchase multiple properties and turn that all into rental income.
Sure. Over and over again. Yeah. And it's interesting. I did my first BRRRR in 2011 before BRRRR became famous from the people at Bigger Pockets. They really sort of coined that phrase, but now, in the industry, that's sort of a common terminology, but it works, right? It's a good opportunity for you to take a property, increase the value, and then utilize the new value to go back to the banks and say, okay, let's refinance it and get all of your initial capital back. So you're able to do that a few times?
Yeah, was able to do it 3 times in 15 months. And then, I got better at it, was able to start to do more projects at once, and was able to do 6 projects in 12 months, in that next time period.
Wow.
And then, I got to a point where I was buying from wholesalers.
Okay.
And the wholesalers were making, it was just getting really hard to find deals. Deal flow was very difficult. So I figured the next best thing was, let's just find our own deals. And so took a course called Driving for Dollars Mastery by Zach Booth, and shout out to Zach, he's a baller, but taught us how to drive for dollars. And then I just started sending postcards, and we started, targeting people that were motivated. And I was doing it myself. I was also 25 at the time, maybe 24 and a half. And I was doing it really inconsistently. And to put it lightly, I was not doing it the way it should have. I was doing it super inconsistently. The first round of letters was supposed to go a week before my honeymoon. Well, it got delayed. And so then it hit on the week of my honeymoon. And so my wife was just, I was getting all these calls, most of them were FU, and it was on my honeymoon. It was so bad. Right.
And obviously the tale behind that is that, normally we send out a whole bunch of letters, and then the first day to 3 days that the letters hit, the phones are blowing up off the hook. So I could imagine that in the middle of your honeymoon, that may not have been the greatest time for your phone to be blowing up off the hook.
It was not a fun time, but my wife was patient, and I learned. And honestly, I only bought one house from that for doing it for 3 months, and spent a good amount of money in postcards. And I was talking to my coach, Zach, at the time, and he's like, "Why, you need to go find somebody who's systems focused so that you can go talk to people and do your strength, and they can do the systems." And so I ended up finding my partner, Sean French, now. And
Sean's a great guy. Yeah,
Sean's awesome. So he put all the system together, and then he basically let me do my strength, and he did his strength. And then from there, we started buying off market properties. And last year we bought 26 houses, all off market. And this year we've already put 22 under contract.
That's great. And these are all residential properties, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, great. So tell me about your transition into multifamily, and sort of what made you decide to move to multifamily, and then what you've done so far.
Yeah. So along those lines, I just kept buying single family houses, and I was like, okay, this is going to take a long time to replace the W-2 income that I have. And that's the ultimate goal for me, at least, was to replace the W-2 income and be your own boss, be able to do what you want with your time. And so it was just taking so long. And eventually I was like, okay, we need to scale it into multifamily. So I started reading more about multifamily, listening to multifamily podcasts like Jake and Gino, for instance, and this one.
Yeah, great.
And so that's what stemmed it. And then, we started buying multifamily, and I had purchased 3 multifamily deals last year before joining Jake and Gino. And then I joined Jake and Gino knowing that I needed to educate more. I knew what I knew, and I knew what I didn't know what I didn't know. And I knew that there was more to it. And so
what did those first 3 deals look like? What area, what size, what did those look like?
The first one, I actually had a verbal on in 2019. It was a 23 unit from someone in my network who was a family member. And I knew that, they wanted to sell. It had been in the family forever. It was paid off. In 2019, I had approached them about buying it. And I didn't know a thing about multifamily, but I knew that, I wanted to be in it.
Sure.
And so Colin Schwartz actually helped me set up that deal. He has 2,400 units in Omaha here. He's a pretty big deal.
Wow.
So I took it to him, and initially we were going to partner on it. And then later on, my family's slow movers, put it that way. We had the verbal in 2019. We closed in March of 2021. So it was over 2 years later that we.
So what's great about that, and it just sort of brings me back to this idea of, investors had the ability, and I think entrepreneurial minded real estate investors just want to kind of get it done, right? And you didn't want to miss on that opportunity. It was like someone said, hey, do you want this 23 unit opportunity? And you're like, I'm not going to let somebody else get this, right? And I'm going to figure out how to do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure out how to make this happen. So that's awesome. And it took you a little bit of time, but you got there, right? That's great.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I will say, like, we were ready to buy it in 2019. It was like COVID happened. It was, there was 5 family members. One of them died during COVID in California. So we couldn't get what we needed to because it was shut down. So
courts were closed down. So you had probate issues there, I bet.
Yeah, there was just a lot of nonsense that went on. But we did end up getting it done, and we stuck it out, and I'm glad we did. So that was the first one. And then, from there, I figured let's start buying more of these. And we bought a 9 unit. We bought that one off market from a broker connection I had made. I had made an offer on a previous package with the broker. We didn't get, but I guess he liked me. And so the next one, he came to me and said, hey, let's try this one out.
Okay.
And we closed, and then, the ball kept rolling from there. We bought a 9 unit. We bought that 9 unit really right. So we were able to use more equity to then buy a 12 unit, 3 months later. And then at that point, I had bought in 56 units in 2021 without a ton of education. I had learned as much as I could off YouTube University, but it's only so good. And I was using a third-party property manager, and that third party I had fired one, and then I had to fire the second one, and because they were not doing the job. We had vacant units, was not working. And so it was at the end of 2021 where I took in-house property management. I just said, all right, I'm just going to do it and do it right. And so,
okay, great. And then not to bury the lead here, but you had a big acquisition recently. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was, it was 26 townhomes in Lincoln, Nebraska, built in 2003. Majority of them are 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units with a garage. So really, really nice big units. And
wow.
That one was a really good deal. We actually bought that property from someone who was a factory worker that won the lottery 11 years ago. They won the Powerball.
Wow. So they won the Powerball 11 years ago, and they invested in a townhouse community.
Yes.
And then they decided to cash in and sell that. That's great. Yeah. That's great. And so the idea of townhouses as a community is interesting to me. So I live in South Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia. My investments are in Philadelphia and South Jersey. I haven't seen those types of properties in our area. In our area, when we see townhouses, they're individually sold, they're individually deeded, and then there's usually an HOA, homeowners association. So we normally see condos and apartments And in our community, in the Jake and Gino community, I've heard different people talking about buying townhouse communities. So that kind of perks my ears up a little bit, because I'd like to hear a little bit more about it, because I can see how there would be value in owning townhouse communities that people would like to live in versus apartments. So can you tell me some of the things that you've learned that are different?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've owned it for 3.5 weeks, so I'm pretty
Okay.
seasoned at this point. But no, it actually was originally built as condos. So it's 4 buildings, and then there's 26 units within the buildings. And so it was originally built as condos. When the guy bought it, he bought all of them and got rid of the HOA.
Okay.
And then turned it into multifamily apartments. And so that is that is an exit strategy for us as well. If we'd like to, is we can just turn them back into condos and sell them off, one by one, and sell them for probably 30 to 40K more than what we bought it for one by one, but we'd rather hang on to it for the long term.
Well, that's interesting. Would you have to go back through another condo conversion with, I guess, with licensing and with
so
zoning?
we would have to put a HOA back into place.
Okay.
But we own all of it. So
The
it would not
majority
be
anyway. Yeah.
difficult to put it back into. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Wow. That's pretty exciting. Again, as I said, that's different than something that we see in my area so far. I mean, when we refer to townhouses, they're sort of straight up and down. They kind of look like what I know to be row homes. When I lived in South Philly, we lived in row homes. And when I see townhouse communities, that's sort of what it looks like. Oftentimes, maybe a garage on the first floor, and then the second floor is living room, dining room, kitchen, and then bedrooms on the third floor. That's sort of what I picture when people talk about townhouses. Is that a similar layout to what you have?
Yeah, pretty accurate. They're actually just split like up and down. So, the ones that have garages that are 3-2s, they've got, a garage on the left, and then they've got 2 bedrooms upstairs, 1 bedroom downstairs. They've got a patio. I mean, they're 1,650 square foot units.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then the other side doesn't have a garage. Instead of the garage, it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit.
Oh, wow.
That's 1,950 square feet.
So that's interesting. I mean, 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom units, I guess you're looking at different clientele. When we talk about unit mix, right, we often talk about how many 1s, how many 2s, how many 3s. 4s aren't quite as common. So I'd imagine that there are maybe larger families, people work from home, want an office, having that additional space is probably interesting to find different tenant base there.
Yeah, all families, and a lot of them are long-term tenants too. People move in, this is their home.
They feel like it's a home. Yeah, that's what I can imagine. Well, that's great. That's great. So things are going well. What's the next step? Where are you heading at this point?
Yeah, at this point, we've pivoted from, we've set up a lot of single family deal flow, which we're continuing to do, but we're also now focusing our efforts into multifamily. So direct to seller, right to multifamily owners. And our goal is to really scale the multifamily here in Omaha, Lincoln, and Council Bluffs.
Great. Well, I'm impressed by the work that you're doing, and, you keep going at it all the time. And I see what you're doing, and I follow your stuff on, on social media, and your journey has been fun to watch. So I know that you're going to continue to grow.
I appreciate that, Bob. And
I'm
right there with you.
Yeah. Thank you. So aside from your potential basketball career, this is the Healthy Investor Podcast. So I like to talk a little bit with investors and entrepreneurs about what sort of healthy habits, routines you incorporate into your normal life that you feel have added value to your business also.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a huge believer in energy. Like, your energy will rule your day. Your energy will rule your emotions, which is how you live your life. And so I'm a huge believer in working out in the mornings, or just doing something to get the body moving. I used to go extremely hard in the mornings.
Okay.
And, I don't think you really have to kill yourself every morning. I've scaled that back quite a bit. And I believe in getting really good sleep. I hardly ever wake up to an alarm. And then, just get up, work out. Right now I'm nursing a back injury. So, I'm just doing some PT, and I'm getting in the sauna every morning, but I'm still getting a sweat in and pounding water. And then another thing that I found is really beneficial, which is kind of weird, but it's celery juice. every morning I juice celery, and I'll actually juice some broccoli, and I'll juice some beets with it as well, and just have fresh organic juice. And it's just like, yeah, it just gets me going. So
it's like you're drinking your own multivitamin there, huh? That's great.
Exactly. And fresh out of the, we live 6 minutes from Whole Foods, so we get everything fresh, organic, rather than like Athletic Greens that's, compacted. And yeah.
So what does a workout look like for you? How do you focus? Are you more of a cardio? Or are you more weights? Do you have like a specific focus?
Yeah, so I go to Orange Theory twice a week.
Okay.
Me and all the moms compete out there. So, but it's a good time. You normally, get a really good circuit workout in, HIIT workout, and then I'll play basketball on once a week, and then I'll typically lift twice a week. So,
okay, great.
Between all that, get something in.
Great. And obviously, I mean, you feel like that energy that you create in the morning has a positive impact on your day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Do you do anything? Do you have anything in your routine that helps to set you up mentally, as far as maybe reading, journaling, meditation, something like that?
Yeah. Well, after I get done, working out, then I'll come back, and before I start my day, I'll shower, and then I'll go to the kitchen table. I'll crack out the Bible, have my quiet time, and I'll pray. And, not to get too spiritual, but when I pray, I always start with Thanksgiving. So I'm just, gratitude starts my day. I say 5 things I'm grateful for. And then I'll, read something from some guy that's way older and wiser than me. And then I'll start my journaling. So just kind of, knock out like what I need to do today to make it a win, and just go do it.
That's great. I love it. So I just to sort of piggyback on that, part of my journaling, when I first started journaling, go back about 6 or 7 years ago, sort of hit the brick wall right away. Like, I don't know what to write. And someone had given me a hint to write down 3 things every morning that you're grateful for, and then write down 3 things that you're going to do to make today a great day. And starting your day off with gratitude is really a powerful, very, very powerful exercise for me. And, it's interesting. So years ago, my mother used to drive my daughter to school every morning. So we didn't necessarily have that morning time. And then my mother had a surgery on her ankle. So I started driving my daughter to school every day. And in the beginning, she was, what are you doing, Daddy? What are you doing? She would see me journaling. And I said, well, I'm writing down things that I'm grateful for. And we started this tradition where every morning on the ride to school, whether she likes it or not, I ask her what she's grateful for. And it not only has enhanced our time together, right? Because my daughter's 11 now, so she's starting to get to that age where how long are our conversations, right? But she's a captive audience for that 15, 20-minute ride to school. So it's good communication for us. But it's just my way of trying to instill in her the idea that if we can start our day with gratitude, there's only a positive direction that it can go. So I love that you really spend your time focusing on that. I think it's such a great thing.
Well, thank you, Bob. And I also, just to expand on that point too, I don't know if you've ever read The Gap in the Gain, but I've seen exactly what you just said play out in my marriage with my wife. I've actually just heard Gino talk about it, but then she actually read it. And, it's impossible to be in a bad state when you're grateful.
Yes.
Everything goes good. And one of the biggest takeaways that's helped our marriage and just our life has been, whenever we find ourselves complaining about something, you immediately just think, okay, now you can't have that anymore. So like if you're in traffic and you're stuck in traffic and you're like, dang, this traffic sucks, then now you can't have a car. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, I'm grateful I have a car,
Right. Wow.
It kicks yourself right back into gratitude and can just totally reset your whole mentality. And it's like, are you living in the gap of like what you don't have or what you wish you had? Or are you living in the gain of everything that you've already done? Like you already have an awesome car, or you already have, my car's not awesome. It's a Honda, but I still love it, So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Great. So I want to be mindful of your time, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with me here today. I'd like to move on to the final 3 questions that I am asking all of my guests. And So as we move into the final questions, the final segment, what is your definition of success?
I would define success as being able to spend your time how you want it and with who you want it.
I like that. I like that. Who you want, when you want, where you want, and why you want, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the goal? Isn't that really the goal of all of our success? It's not necessarily about a dollar sign. It's not necessarily about a thing. It's really about freedom to do what you want. That's great. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So question number 2, for someone who's new to investing or even just learning how to focus on their goals and their path to success, could you give us a good book recommendation that made a difference for you that you think would make a difference for someone else?
Yeah. 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Or highly
Stephen Covey.
People. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is it's the Bible and then that book for me. Like I read that book every year, and I was very fortunate. I read that when I was 21 years old, and I began with the end in mind at that age. And that was just really, really powerful for me to shape how I wanted to make my choices from then on out. And I made plenty of mistakes, still do, but that book is so powerful if you really give it the time of day.
That's great. I give you a lot of credit. Many of us, I'm in my later 40s. I'll be 47 next week. And I really didn't begin this journey until I was somewhere in my mid 30s. So I'm sure you've probably met several people in my age group, or maybe even more senior than me, who will say, I wish at 21 years old, I started that process and started reading the type of books that you're reading and moving into that direction. So I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, thank you. You don't look a day past 40. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to keep myself young.
Yes.
So I want to thank you for coming on and taking the time to be with you, to be with me and to be with us here today, talking a little bit about your journey. How can we support you, and how can people contact you and find out about what you're up to?
If you add me on Facebook, I post a lot on Facebook and just, what I'm doing and my journey on there. So just, Wyatt Simon. I also have Instagram, Wyatt Buys Houses. And then I also, if you are wanting to connect more, just the Omaha market and really get involved and learn more, then you can go to my website, www.f as in full, C as in circle, equitypartners.com. And then you can book a time to schedule a call with me and we can connect there.
Well, that's great. I hope people reach out to you, and I hope they connect to you from this. So the final question, before we let you go, if you can think back to a young Wyatt, even younger than the 21-year-old that we were just talking about. So around age 10 to 12 years old, knowing what you've learned so far in your journey and the successes and maybe even some of the tough things that you've overcome, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to yourself from ages, 10 to 12 or any child at that age to help guide towards success?
I would say the first thing would be, don't be afraid to fail. Just take the risk, shoot the shots in the games, just, and do that. Step out of, and then the next thing I would say is, outside of practice or outside of school, do the extra reps. So I used to come to practice and that's all I did. And I would have been a lot better at basketball if I would have, practiced outside of practice.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say those are the 2 things. Yeah.
Those are 2. All right, great. Well, Wyatt Simon, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It's good to have you on. Wishing you continued success. And thanks again for being on the Healthy Investor Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bob.
Thanks so much for joining me on the Healthy Investor Podcast. Check out the show notes for more information about connecting with our guest. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please head on over to iTunes and leave a positive rating and review. It would mean the world to me. I'm grateful for your support, and I wish you an abundance of success on your journey to healthy investments and a healthy life.